Rise and shine out. Good morning, Uganda family. Thank you for being with us. To bid our farewells to the month of October, just 11 days to go. Well, I hope that we can also be able to last through. And I want to dedicate it to all the teachers that really were the teachers who already stood in the windows suspect one person, and maybe later on I'll be sharing who I think and why I think they could have been a culprit at one point. My name is Philomena Mastiko. I am with the usual suspects like every single morning. I do have Mollen, Kenyena, Felix Nkunda, and the senior man Robert Kirabo, Nyonyintono. Uncle Bob, this is when the name comes into play. From Thursday and onwards, Uncle Bob comes into play. Monday to Wednesday, it's a different person altogether. Well, first things first, good morning, Mollen. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Good morning. And I also want to say good morning to our family out there. Well, when you talk about experience in school,
yes,
I just remember the good old days. You're in school. I mean, I was a behaved student. And I have a certificate to prove that, a certificate in discipline. So I don't know about the stubborn ones, as always on
during
the good
examination time, more than there were no disciplined students.
I am telling you, even during examination time,
yes,
actually I used not to read those last minute things. Me, the last day, you find me chilling. I'm just waiting and sitting back and reminding myself of what I've been reading. I know there was a lot of competition in my school, and it was always between a girl group and a boy group.
Yes.
So you had to be competitive. Otherwise, and I didn't know that that actually worked. Let me tell you, one thing I would say to someone who is still taking exams.
Yes.
You need to be competitive. It helps you to actually read ahead or read fast. Because once you know there is someone you want to beat, that drives you into reading. But when you're relaxed, you can't read, to pass exams. But also talking about that, Philomena, educationists are arguing that there should be school programs,
yes,
specifically about mental health. And I do agree. I think we have seen mostly in the education system of, like the US and these other developed countries, they do have a therapist in school as part of the education or the administration, such that students are able to go there and they're able, to express their issues or even be mentored. And I think that's a program that we should adapt in Uganda. You find that there are a lot of students with issues right from home or even around school, but they have no one to talk to. But if we introduce a curriculum where we even involve mental health, we have psychologists, you have therapists in school, they can help, these children to get into the right path and focus on their studies. And I think that is something that we should even have taken on early on. But now that it is on the table, I hope it is adapted such that we can have at least mandatory for every school, yes, to have a therapist to tend to these students.
The closest we have been to that, at least during my days, I remember we had a school counselor. But even then, most of the counseling sessions were actually made up of the boy-girl relationships. That is all they were always telling you about. And maybe then we didn't really have the issues of mental health being really interrogated. Or maybe they were there and we just did not recognize them.
About black people don't believe in therapy, and I'll tell you that. Africans would rather
say those things are
problems
for movies.
They say they are for movies, they are for white people. So we had those issues, but people would cry and from the inside.
Yeah.
They feel like, and for boys it's worse because they have grown up in a culture that tells them, as a man you're not supposed to cry. As a man you must be strong.
It's a sign of weakness.
It's a sign of weakness if you tell your problems to someone, and they are suffering with health issues, mental health issues. So they were there, but we just didn't want to share. But now that people should know that it's okay, yes, to talk to a profession about issues that you're going through. I think that's all.
Well, good morning, Felix. How are you doing?
Well, I'm awesome. Good morning, Philo. How are you doing?
I'm great. I can't complain.
Why the black this Thursday?
Well, black is an all-season color, so yeah.
Tell me about that.
Thank you.
No doubt. No doubt. Nevertheless, it is throwback, as you did say. And definitely there's a lot of things to do, reminisce about past days, the days where the things we used to go through. I was just wondering, one of the people you talked about in regards to copying. I don't know how true it is, but I saw Bob worried. I don't know if you meant Bob, but that would be for you to tell us.
I am not mentioning.
But I would tell you. But I will tell you something.
Yes.
The first time someone, I use the word, seduced me into trying to copy.
Yes.
I don't know what's wrong. And this guy is a very famous guy one of these days. He gave me a car, you know those budget books, like, you know this kind of thing, you go with it, blah, blah, blah. My heart was telling me, don't do it. Don't do it. I don't know why I didn't listen to my heart. I carried the thing to the class. The moment, like, after I said start, so the nigga, after like about 15 minutes, guy's like, Alex, bring the thing. Like, there's the way the devil works.
Yes.
The moment I just got the thing like this,
the
next thing I had, stand up. I'm like, oh my God. So I that was the first and the last time.
Yes.
And clearly my experience about copying in school. And there are these guys who used to sit next to, like, I remember one time we were doing a chemistry paper, and man, these equations just weren't adding up. But this nigga was doing things like, yeah, these guys used to finish exams like, they say a paper is about 3 hours.
Yes.
By 1.5 hours.
They're done.
He's like, and then there's a way they put the aqua finger there to cover, so you don't even, so.
And then they were always put in the blacklist of very many students, by the way, because they would call you out. Why are you hiding your information? But you have the right to hide your information.
Those guys were mean. The nigga would put this, that's what they put this.
The elbow.
So you'd be like, okay, Jakufu.
Well, there were people who also used to copy by writing on their bodies some of the answers. I will tell you, the things that the students that have done are very ridiculous. Good morning, Uncle Bob. I don't know, have you been a culprit before? Or were you at any one point a culprit?
Morning to you, of course, the entire team. Now, when I hear memories, people talking about coping, I've not been a victim, but I've assisted. I must say, I've assisted. I had a very good friend of mine.
Yes. And
there are some subjects he wasn't good at, but he was a very good friend of mine. And where I went to school, we had what they called average.
Yes.
So if you didn't make it to the average, you'd either be told to repeat as class, or at the end of the year, your reporters, you're advised to try your talents elsewhere. So I never wanted to lose this friend. And what you do after you've written, you write. Then
on the paper.
No, tactfully, because they would space us, you kind of, if these were your papers.
Yes.
So you put what you finished here and now begin writing here. So you had to make sure he sits at the back, not next to you, at the back. So when you do this, he would see from the back.
But that means he had to have a very good eyesight.
Of course, his eyesight was very
because if you had issues with your eyes,
so
this strategy was not for you.
And actually they were big, similar to a colleague of ours. So he would see very well. Those, you know, those people, those big eyes, compound eyes. So he would be able to see very well, and then he would see through. But I think over time, one teacher discovered that actually we were copying. And this guy comes, I've done my thing properly. He notices this one is copying. Just saw him come pull my papers from me. He's get out. That is when I knew now danger had surfaced.
But you know,
that is really bad.
Let me kindly just allow me. This the scenario that I went through. I remember as in S1, I had this very good friend, as Bob said, but I used to be very good in math, and it was terrible. Now, what used to happen, we would, after I finished, I would give him like the whole full scope.
Yes.
And he would simply just rewrite everything. So, and you know, when you're focusing on math, like, you know, you never think about the time. Like,
yes.
So guy had like 3 of my full scalps. And then the nigga comes in class. Some guy we used to call Lambuda. Used to be a teacher. He's like, put your papers together for stapling. And I tried, now that's when I realized I only have 1 full scalp, which I'm writing on. And you know what the guy did?
Yes.
He
He owned
put together all of my foolscaps. He wrote his name. The suicide is check.
Oh my
At that point, even
goodness.
that's when he said, "I'm finished." So I was left with one, and that paper I think he got about 70 something.
Oh my goodness.
And I came out with a whooping 36.
Did you greet that person again? Were you guys friends throughout the school time?
Well, of course, at that age, you even get mad. You just laugh over things, and you know.
But also, I want to think that the teacher, wasn't the teacher a bit shocked? Because, you know, your teacher kind of knows the performance of the students,
I mean,
right?
when yes one, you're all like stumbling.
Oh,
and
okay.
you don't
Well,
have a
senior one,
record
you're still
about
trying to
what.
figure out
but
your
the
students.
next papers, niggas getting 13, 14, 13. And you know how teachers can praise a kid.
What happened?
Be like this one. Like, hey, the next exam.
I think at that point they knew this person was coping.
Probably,
but I've
yeah,
also had an
I think
experience
so.
with passing foolscaps, and that this even still happens at campus. And you know,
Yes, campus, yes,
I can
yes.
say at campus, if you don't do it, these are old people. They will attack you
I
after the
never saw
exam. They will be
this
like,
ever
"Come
in-
on!"
honestly.
No, they will be like, "Come on! Why wouldn't you pass your
At
papers?"
campus, you're so
mean.
scared, man. You can be disqualified. Can you even?
You could be disqualified, but this is also the perfect place.
Take
You
too many
have
risks.
tactics.
You have to risk it.
But at campus, like you do
for that
coursework,
scenario, people would
everything is
easily
easy.
get out of it, and let me tell you, like in your scenario, people would easily, they would rather throw their own papers down so that you all sort from there. At that point, you're
The guy was intentional. That thing was in the guy must have been.
yeah.
Well, there is a lot of memories. We can go on and on and on and on. But I did know about this because I did come across a story in one of the dailies. I don't know if you came across it as well. One student who went blind after, assumingly went blind after looking at the paper. You know, they were sitting when they presented the paper. I think it's in Kitgum, one of those districts. They presented the paper. She looked through it. The eyesight.
Because what,
Yes.
the exam is not what she expected.
But most likely, we do not know. Maybe she wasn't ready. Maybe she was outsported. I really cannot tell. But her, you know, her eyesight eventually came back. So you see,
After the
yes, yes.
At what
And
point
she's so
now?
sad for the paper. It was in one of
I
our
remember,
dailies.
I think was it senior 4, when one of the students, after looking at the paper, they call them ghosts or something, just I said, now what is happening? I think it's all psychological. These kids just choose to act funny, you know,
The judge
and
has
we are
refused the
all
paper.
we began scattering, you know. Then he's down in that desk and we are banging. Teachers come, they lift him, they take him out. We are like,
If you don't
What
know the
is happening?
feeling or the phobia that exams bring, I'm telling you. I remember girls used to put off their shoes. They would open their shirts like till like no one is understanding that morning. And there's something particular about physics, chemistry, biology.
Oh, yes.
I don't know.
Especially
like,
if you're the kind of student who, well, your forte is not exactly in those science subjects.
Some of us, those were like the best times.
Yeah.
I've
They
never
were
seen
my
someone
best.
sweat.
If we're going for a math paper, that's my good day. Physics paper, that's my favorite. I
was
mean,
always
you
one
had
of my
categories
worst
of people
days.
who loved those and those who didn't. I would say maybe the biology would be a problem because you have to read more. But then again, you're also excited because you know you're going to excel.
there's a
You guys had a different experience.
Well, it makes a lot of sense because when you look at students, they all have preferences. Personally, at the science subjects. Anyway, let's move to some of our stories, local stories, international stories. We start off with what happened right here at home, Robert.
Here's Ebola, where government is doing all it takes and authorities to ensure safety of Ugandans and control the spread of the virus. About 19 high-risk contacts of Ebola disease of the Mubende case are being isolated in Mulago Referral Hospital. As health workers monitor them closely, the Director, Public Health and Environment, Kampala Capital City Authority, Dr. Okelo Daniel, said the authority is focusing on areas of congestion as high risk. He advised areas like transport sector, markets, arcades to ensure they revisit the use of temperature guns to assess fever and ensure they have hand washing facilities at their entrances and exits.
Now, Congolese refugees living in the Nyakabande holding center in Kisoro district have up to the end of October 2022 to choose between joining the settlement or going back home. Now, this follows a directive from the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness and the refugees seeking to cut down the numbers of refugees at the center to prevent security and also hygiene-related consequences. As a result of what they described as coercion, some have opted to return to Congo while others are settling in Nakivale refugee settlement in Isingiro district.
And moving on, we see where education and stakeholders have asked government to consider revising the number of years learners spend in primary school from 7 to 6 years. According to Dr. Mary Goreti Nagawa, the policy should also be able to capture what is required of teachers in terms of capability rather than education award attained.
The Uganda Virus Research Institute has launched a new laboratory that will be used to examine diseases that come from animals. And the executive director, Professor Ponciano Kirabo, reiterated that the laboratory will help in researching more about how viruses are transmitted. The ambassador of the US to Uganda, Natalie Brown, commissioned the newly established lab worth $500 at Uganda Virus Research Institute in Entebbe.
Now, looking at some of the international stories, Russia has warned the United Nations against investigating its use of drones in Ukraine amid accusations the weapons came from Iran and were used in violation of UN arms restrictions on the Middle Eastern country. The United States, France and the United Kingdom called a closed-door Security Council meeting on the drones after an attack on Kyiv on Monday that killed at least 5 people and caused widespread damage to power stations and other civilian infrastructure. Ukraine says its military has shot down more than 220 Iranian drones, formerly known as uncrewed aerial vehicles, in little more than a month, and has invited UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres to Ukraine to inspect some of the wreckage it has collected. Speaking after the Security Council meeting on Wednesday, Russia's Deputy UN Ambassador Dmitry Polyansky insisted the weapons had been made in Russia and condemned baseless accusations and conspiracy theories. New York City has opened an emergency tent shelter to house an influx of asylum seekers being bussed into the city by the Republican leaders of Texas and other U.S. states in advance of critical midterm elections early next month. The first arrivals were brought on Wednesday to the Humanitarian Emergency Response and Relief Center on Randall's Island, which will serve as a temporary home for 500 single migrant men, according to the city. The asylum seekers were dropped off in New York City after long journeys that began in Venezuela and other countries south of the United States border with Mexico, which has seen an increase in arrivals in recent months.
Zimbabwe approves long-acting HIV prevention drug. Now, Zimbabwe has become the first country in Africa to approve a long-acting injectable drug that prevents HIV transmission. The first 2 injections of cabotegravir CAB-LA are administered 4 weeks apart, followed by an injection every 8 weeks. Now, the drug has received regulatory approval in 2 other countries, the US and Australia. Zimbabwe will begin rolling out the drug after regulators approved its use. The authorities say it will provide a crucial layer of protection for risk groups, and large-scale studies of the drug showed 79% reduction in HIV risk compared to the oral pre-exposure prophylaxis, according to the World Health Organization. Now, concerns about climate change shrink globally as the threat grows, according to the study. While concerns about climate change shrank across the world last year, a survey shows with fewer than half of those questioned believing it posed a very serious threat to their countries in the next 20 years. Only 20% of people in China, the world's biggest polluter, said they believed that climate change was a very serious threat, down 3% points from the previous poll in 2019. Now, the survey by Gallup World Risk poll showed on Wednesday. Globally, the figure fell by 1.5% points to 48.7% in 2021. The study shows now the COVID-19 pandemic and concerns about more immediate issues such as health and livelihood may partly explain the drop. The survey, based on over 125,000 interviews in 121 countries. Climate change awareness rose slightly in the United States in 2021, the second biggest polluter. Now that was to 51.5%. As the study added, regions with the highest ecological threats are on average the least concerned about climate change, with only 27.4% of the Middle East and North Africa and 39.1% of South Asia respondents were concerned about the risks.
Well, while Atit, also just to let you know of our poll question, this morning our conversations are going to be rotating around labor externalization. Now, whether you like it or not, labor externalization is an inevitable result of the globalized world, and it's not necessarily bad for as long as it is not abused. However, in the last couple of weeks, months, years, we've had very terrible stories, especially being told by some of our Ugandan workers that have been off to the areas and countries of Saudi Arabia, Oman, to mention but a few. And government and very many other stakeholders have decided or have over time try to make sure that they come together, sit and see how they can streamline this industry. Well, this morning we want to know from you, how can the Ugandan government manage better labor externalization? How can the Ugandan government manage better labor externalization? Do tell us what you think can be put into action to make sure that at the end of the day there are no cases we've had in the previous days, and to make sure that everybody is treated equally, whether they're in the country or not, especially for our Ugandan counterparts. Get onto our social media platforms. Twitter, the hashtag is UBCGMU, and tell us what you think. You could also use WhatsApp. The number is 0709 602 592. Send your thoughts, your opinions and your submissions over there. I will surely be getting into them as Good Morning Uganda goes on. But also, speaking of your health is quite necessary. Every other day we make a reminder for you to ensure that you are in check before you start off the day. Robert.
Well, it's all about your health, and that should be your number one priority, because all you can have it only when you're alive. But you should ensure that you boost your immune system so that when these diseases try to attack you, your body is able to fight them off. And how do you do that? By simply taking Hallelujah Jinga tea, Hallelujah tamarind drink, and Hallelujah banana fruit juice. Now, what these do is they'll save you so much, because you'll be very productive because you're healthy, but also you'll save some money that you would be spending, you would have spent on physicians, clinics, pharmacies. So make that saving by simply taking Hallelujah products. Just 1,500 each of these bottles, regular use, more benefits.
There you go, and make sure that you are one of the beneficiaries when it comes to that healthy drink. For now, we are getting into the throwback jam. I don't know, maybe just to hear from you, Felix, what is that one throwback jam that brings quite a number of memories of your head?
Aha, I used to love Congolese music.
Ah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
De la Congolais. Mm-hmm. So because of the dances, you know, we used to go down, open your legs and do like this, then you throw one, you know, it used to be, the Lingala dance. And if you didn't know how to dance the Lingala, you wouldn't get enough money on the floor. You know how they used to call it. I don't know what in English it is, but in Uganda say, kufu wa send. Trust me, every family party, I would go home with about 2,000, 3,000, 4,000.
Of course you would, Felix. Of course you would. Mollen, what are those songs that really just takes you back in time?
Well, maybe also, I think, Congolese music. Now that he's talking about it,
Yes.
I feel it all ringing ahead. And, you know, seeing people, I'm probably one of the world's worst dancers. I would sit back and watch.
Well,
and,
that is not so new to scientists.
honest.
Yeah, scientists are dancing.
yeah.
It's written all over her.
Yeah, I was always like relaxed. I didn't go so much into the dancing.
Any particular song, if you don't mind me asking?
No, nothing
Did
in
you say that you used to
particular.
have coupe, kibombo?
Nothing in particular.
Robert, what is that one song?
I've always loved slow music. There's this one song by Celine Dion that says, "If that's what it takes."
This one here is a lover boy.
Yeah.
Well, for me it was always the Chaka Chaka songs. Yeah, because my parents really loved Chaka Chaka so much. So I kind of grew up listening to the Chaka Chaka songs, and my oh my.
Yvonne Chaka Chaka.
Yes, yes, she did quite a number
crazy.
on me and our entire family.
she's crazy.
Well, we are throwing it back in a couple of minutes. When we get back, we are going to be talking about labor externalization and the effects, the implications. How can we better it to make sure that at the end of the day, everyone walks out a big champion in this one. Good morning, Uganda. We'll return shortly after.
Live from UBC Studios in
Rise and shine out. Good morning, Uganda family. Thank you for being with us. To bid our farewells to the month of October, just 11 days to go. Well, I hope that we can also be able to last through. And I want to dedicate it to all the teachers that really were the teachers who always stood in the windows suspect one person, and maybe later on I'll be sharing who I think and why I think they could have been a culprit at one point. My name is Philomena Mastiko. I am with the usual suspects like every single morning. I do have Mollen, Kenyena, Felix Nkunda, and the senior man Robert Kirabo, Nyonyintono. Uncle Bob, this is when the name comes into play. From Thursday and onwards, Uncle Bob comes into play. Monday to Wednesday, it's a different person altogether. Well, first things first, good morning, Mollen. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Good morning. And I also want to say good morning to our family out there. Well, when you talk about experience in school,
yes.
I just remember the good old days. You're in school. I mean, I was a behaved student. And I have a certificate to prove that, a certificate in discipline. So I don't know about the stubborn ones. There is only
during examination time, more than there were no disciplined students.
I am telling you, even during examination time,
yes.
Actually, I used not to read those last minute things. Me, the last day, you find me chilling. I'm just waiting and sitting back and reminding myself of what I've been reading. I know there was a lot of competition in my school, and it was always between a girl group and a boy group.
Yes.
So you had to be competitive. Otherwise, and I didn't know that that actually worked. Let me tell you, one thing I would say to someone who is still taking exams.
Yes.
You need to be competitive. It helps you to actually read ahead or read fast. Because once you know there is someone you want to beat, that drives you into reading. But when you're relaxed, you can't read, you know, to pass exams. But Also talking about that, Philomena, educationists are arguing that there should be school programs specifically about mental health. And I do agree. I think we have seen mostly in the education system of, like the US and these other developed countries, they do have a therapist in school as part of the education or the administration, such that students are able to go there and they're able, to express their issues or even be mentored. And I think that's a program that we should adopt in Uganda. You find that there are a lot of students with issues right from home or even around school, but they have no one to talk to. But if we introduce a curriculum where we even involve mental health, we have psychologists, you have therapists in school, they can help, these children to get into the right path and focus on their studies. And I think that is something that we should even have taken on earlier on. But now that it is on the table, I hope it is adapted such that we can have at least mandatory for every school to have a therapist to tend to these students.
The closest we have been to that, at least during my days, I remember we had a school counselor. But even then, most of their counseling sessions were actually made up of the boy-girl relationships. That is all they were always telling you about. And maybe then we didn't really have the issues of mental health being really derogated. Or maybe they were there and we just did not recognize them.
About black people don't believe in therapy, and I'll tell you that. Africans would rather
say those
keep
things
their
are
problems.
for movies.
They say they are for movies, they are for white people. So we had those issues, but people would cry and from the inside. They feel like, and for boys it's worse because they have grown up in a culture that tells them, as a man you're not supposed to cry. As a man you must be strong.
It's a sign of weakness.
It's a sign of weakness if you tell your problems to someone, and they are suffering with health issues, mental health issues. So they were there, but we just didn't want to share. But now that people should know that it's okay to talk to a professional about issues that you're going through. I think that's all.
Well, good morning, Felix. How are you doing?
Well, I'm awesome. Good morning, Philo. How are you doing?
I'm great. I can't complain.
Why the black this Thursday?
Well, black is an all-season color, so yeah.
Tell me about that.
Thank you.
No doubt. No doubt. Nevertheless, it is throwback, as you did say. And definitely there's a lot of things to do, reminisce about past days, the days where the things we used to go through. I was just wondering, one of the people talked about in regards to copying. I don't know how true it is, but I saw Bob worried. I don't know if you meant Bob, but that would be for you to tell us.
I have not mentioned.
But I would tell you. But I will tell you something.
Yes.
The first time someone, I use the word seduced me into trying to copy.
Yes.
I don't know what's wrong. And this guy is a very famous guy one of these days. He gave me a car, those budget books, like, this kind of thing, you go with it, blah, blah, blah. My heart was telling me, don't do it. Don't do it. I don't know why I didn't listen to my heart. I carried the thing to the class. The moment, like, after I said start, so the nigga, after like about 15 minutes, guy's like, Alex, bring the thing. Like, there's the way the devil works.
Yes.
The moment I just got the thing like this,
the
next thing I had, stand up. I'm like, oh my God. So that was the
know what you think about that. Now, earlier on I did talk about labor externalization, and I said it is inevitably a result of globalization. At the end of the day, people are going to cross countries boundaries to seek for greener pastures, to look for where life is a bit softer. I mean, we all want the soft life, and sometimes we will go through the extreme to make sure that we achieve that. Now, here in Uganda, we've had quite a couple of people who have left the country, moving to Saudi Arabia, moving to Oman, and all these Arab countries and nations to make sure that they get the greener pastures. And according to the Uganda Human Rights Commission report, it really showed that a number of people have left Uganda. And also another report from the Ministry of Gender Labor and Social Development showed that 28,000 Ugandans seek household jobs in the Middle East due to poverty, unemployment, domestic violence, among very many other reasons. 28,000 Ugandans. This is on a weekly basis. Now, in a month, if you do your simple calculations, how many people are those? And now we're looking at a monthly basis. But the problem here comes that when this happens, when labor externalization happens, abuse has been registered. It has not been handled in such a humane way. Now, Uganda is one of the countries where we have seen very, very many terrible stories that have been taunting us, where people have been talking about their experiences, the people who have gone to the Middle East to get better opportunities. We have seen videos that have made rounds, and it has really been bad, I must say, dragging government into this to make sure that we find a better way. Now, when it comes to finding better ways, of course, we are talking about repatriation, which has also been one on the list, or not actually top of the list, to make sure that we get the Ugandans who are stranded in these Middle East countries back to Uganda so that they can try to forge their life right from here. But that is also still a bit problematic. We are making progress. A few people have been repatriated by different organizations, even the government itself, but it's still wanting. All right, and maybe we can start from there. Robert, what do you think is happening? Because right now, we were having an earlier discussion where we did establish that about 465 people did show interest in wanting to return home. But out of those, it's a very small number we have seen return to home. What is the problem? Where is it?
First, I think, is the fact that Ugandans are so daring, I must say. That and also the situation back home, that sometimes people have no decision, no choice between a hard rock and a stone. How does this happen? That a Ugandan would go to a country well knowing that they are not sure of what they are going to do when they get there. Even a simple example, a person comes from the village, gets on a bus, comes to Kampala.
Yes.
No relative, no what? But they tell you after some time that I was able to make it. Someone tells you a story of how they came. I came on this lorry, I landed in Kampala, I began, they have all these stories. And finally, by God's grace, hard work, and other factors, this person makes it and tells a story. So that is how some Ugandans also end up in some of these countries. Now, today we are looking at the United Arab Emirates, of course, out of the Middle East. You find that a person leaves Uganda, going to the United Arab Emirates, and goes on a visiting visa or a tourist visa, well knowing he's not a tourist, well knowing he's not going to visit, but he knows that once I land there, I'll be able to do anything that I can do, any job. Sometimes they have contacts that their agents come with this amount of money. You, when you get to Bamia Square, call this person. When you get to... So these people go without proper arrangements. They land in these countries. They came on a visiting visa. It expires. Now, when this visa expires, it attracts fines. I was listening to the Minister of Labour, Gender and Social Development when she was addressing the media on this issue at the media center here in Kampala. She said they have found Ugandans that have 5 million, 10 million, even 47 million in fines of overstay. So your time to be in this country ended. You either had to come back to Uganda or you had to pay and get a working permit in this country. So now, when this person looks at coming back home, they don't have this money to pay. So they remain in this country doing anything they can do. If they're unlucky, then authorities get them on overstay. They're kept in detentions. So the numbers were increasing, and this is not only for Ugandans, a number of African countries.
Yes.
There were many in detention. There were many sleeping on the streets. When you go to Bamia Square, for example, you find there are many Ugandans there. So the UAE government said no. Let's give amnesty or extend a humanitarian hand and say, if you're in our countries and you know you're there illegally, but you want to come back home, report to a certain immigration center. And this is in, is it Al Warid, that is in Dubai. Go there, we receive you, we assess you, then we are going to get you free air tickets back to your country. So, some have gone to this center, and according to the PS, Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, that is Agre Kabenge, he said around 765 Ugandans have shown interest to come back home. But remember, there are not only Ugandans that are reporting to these centers.
Yes.
Also other Africans. And second, there is a vetting process because some don't have any documents. Some were conned and they gave their documents to people. Others, maybe they sold their documents. Others have all sorts of stories. So they want to know that Felix or Robert Kirabo came to Dubai. This was his story. He doesn't even have, let's process his travel documents. Let him go back to Uganda. However, there are even those that are saying, as you're processing, we have our documents, but since there's this window, we have the money, we can get on planes or other organization can take us back. Because the return ticket is between 700 and 800 Uganda shillings for these people to return home.
Yes.
That's why you see some well-wishers, some political parties have organized and they have been able to bring back to a tune of about 41 Ugandans. But government is saying we've not failed. According to the PS, Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, he's saying we've not failed. But there's a process that we have to go through. And if we tell you a Ugandan, go and report to this center, and for you choose for reasons not to go there. So are we going to pick any Ugandan we find on the street? So that is where the problem is, but there's that window since August this year, and I believe that many that present themselves will be able to return home. But the challenge of it, you can't hold the government, the EU, at ransom.
Yes.
Bring them, we need them quickly. Because they're not only working on Ugandans, and it's not their fault that your people came to these countries, worked, overstayed. Because we have many Ugandans that are there, and they are working. They went through proper channels, or they were blessed. But we have even these, we can't say it's their fault, but because of circumstances.
Yes.
You know, most of Ugandans that are in these centers were conned by what they call agents. And unfortunately, some agents are fellow Ugandans. This young man leaves Uganda with a few monies, goes on this visa. They promise him when you come here, you're going to get your work permit.
Yes.
He sells a plot of land. He gives another Ugandan about 10 million to get them a job. This one just disappears in thin air.
Okay. And now, back in July this year, the Speaker of Parliament, Betty Among, did ask the Committee of Gender Labour, the Parliamentary Committee on Gender Labour and Social Development, to fast-track the welfare of some of these migrant workers in these countries and also come up with necessary interventions. Now, away from repatriating them, Felix, do you think that there is a possibility of how we can actually make them feel secure even while they are still at those workplaces? Let's say maybe if we can make the better, is there a way that the government can come in to make those working conditions much better as opposed to repatriating them? Because we clearly know that very many Ugandans wouldn't want to return here. Or even if they did return, I mean, it's not a given that you're going to get jobs and all that.
It's a very traumatizing process. You left going to the Garden of Eden, and then you're coming back to the land of Karamoja. So it doesn't dry.
No, honestly and truly, this whole topic causes a lot of agony for us Ugandans. And probably more reason to be thankful to God that we are not in the categories of these darling and ailing Ugandans. When you take time to appreciate the pattern of events as they have been happening in relation to externalization of labor, one would think that there are more dangers than opportunities, yet the reverse is true.
Yes.
Consistently, the issue of torture, inhuman treatment, theft, fraud, conning has been a normal practice in relation to externalization of labor. And I think at some point, most recent, it has also been entangled with human trafficking.
Yes.
If you're keen to have noted that. When people are out of a country, and this is what we have been continuously putting government on stand, they don't cease to be nationals. However, that is how it seems most recent. There have been, there's a whole ministry in Uganda, actually we are lucky, there's a whole ministry that is charged with dealing with such kind of transactions, like you say, the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social, I think, Development or something like that. Now, the question is, you see, there's what we call preventative and interventions. All we have been discussing up till today, more so are interventions. But all these things are avoidable. They are avoidable. For example, out of 100 people who are going for this kind of setup of work, they go about out of 100, about 80% or 90 go through the national airport. Then probably the 10% will go through other lucrative means. They go to Nairobi through a bus and all these things. But the bigger number goes through Entebbe. I'm talking about two things, interventions and prevention. If we want to find a lasting solution, I think that photo does justice. For some of you who have been to the airport of Uganda most recent, it is just so annoying. Like you can be in a line. Actually, I'm glad I've been teaching for some time. Sometimes I have people who are, hey, you told me, please come. And I feel bad, but you see those lines? That is the situation at Entebbe Airport from morning to night. But what are the checks we have put in place? Now, that you see there is very little. I don't know if any of us has been to Addis Ababa. I've been privileged to go through Ethiopia, one of the flights. You find Ugandan girls stranded at the airport, crying to any person they see who looks like a Ugandan. You're talking about now Dubai. Go to Qatar. Al-Hamad, is it Hamad? Hamad. They're in the corridors of toilets, they're in the corridors everywhere. Like any person, as long as they see that you can click a language that they know, like. But what am I saying this? These things we can avoid. We have been having this conversation about here con men who are taking people. Why can't we arrest these people? There's a time even a particular company was on a spotlight somewhere in Muyenga.
Yes.
What happened after? Is it still back in business or it totally closed? The biggest challenge of some of these things is we have gotten politics entangled in every business in this country, where it needs to be, even where it doesn't have to be. This biggest problem in this externalization of labor is politics. The people who are manning this, the big boys, as they normally say, in this business, have political friends. The first people who took people to Dubai, you go and do your research. Who are they? Were they people from government? Were they government officials? People who started these companies. Remember the story, the first story that came out of the lady, I think there's something that happened. She came back. This whole thing, we need to be clear. You see, when you have a society where people are so vulnerable in terms of wealth, you can use them for anything. And that applies anywhere in the world. The solution is not this. What Robert is saying is true, to bring them back to what? He told you himself. And I don't think he has ever been deported. He's hearing stories. But we can interact with people who have been brought back to these countries. You'll be shocked.
Yes.
Mental cases.
Okay? Now, you go to seek greener pastures, and then you end up finding calamity there, you're coming back to what? When we talk about externalization of labor, some people make it look like it's only Uganda in these countries. No.
There are very many. We had reports from Kenya not so long ago.
Yes, 80 people
Actually,
in a month. They
actually,
said
what
in a month or
happened
3
to
months.
Kenya, you see, when you're looking at labor externalization, two things we must factor in. That there is what is legal and what is happening illegally. For example, Kenya had suspended labor externalization for domestic workers because they had found it almost impossible to regulate it. Recently, they lifted the ban on it, and Kirabo has happened to Kenya. And actually, they were here in Uganda to benchmark for a bit of success that Uganda has had in that area. But we must look at it this way, and this is my honest of opinions. One, we have a problem of ignorance among Ugandans first. We have a problem of these companies. We have a problem of government deliberately, and I want to use this word deliberately, not giving it the due diligence that is needed, looking at how much it brings in. For example, when Felix talks about the welfare of these girls, Uganda government only, and I want to be very clear on record, only allows labor externalization of domestic workers to Saudi Arabia only.
Yes.
If a girl is found, because most of the stories are coming from these maids, because they're in houses of people. We have people that are in marketing, in security, in call centers and all that, but don't get this, because for them, they're not in people's homes. But you find a girl in Qatar, you find a girl in all these other countries, that when they were leaving this country, they left in other ways, had to detect that this is what they were going to do.
Yes.
I've given an example. If someone says, I'm going to Dubai, and they have documents, they have their visa, they have their passports, I'm going to visit, you get it. How then are you at the airport going to say, but how? Because they have the legal documentation that gives them to go. So, today we have a challenge, and I want to begin with the public, and our members should know. First, you who is traveling or going to these companies, are you sure you're going to a genuine company? Every RDC, every DISO in this country has a list of credited, authorized companies to carry out labor externalization. When you go to CPS, Simbamanyo building, that's just behind CPS, they will give you the full list. Have knowledge, because this is going to be, you're looking for destiny in one way or the other. Two, government, where I fault government is when government of Uganda signed these bilateral relations with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia about 2018, they agreed that for the safety of these girls that are coming, government of Uganda must have what they call labor attaches deployed in these countries. That fellow, when a girl has a problem in someone's house and she calls the company, they're not paying attention, she calls the other company in Saudi Arabia. When you call an official of government of Uganda, then they'll take action. Yes. Since 2018, not a single one has been put in this country. Our embassy is also there struggling. That is one. And when now ministries of gender saw that these things were so rampant, you know what they did? They told these companies that you must have people in these places where you're taking the girls. Now for some companies, what they did, they simply picked on anyone who can speak Arabic. No education level, no nothing. So when this girl calls, just imagine a girl in a home of a general in Saudi Arabia being mistreated. What is a Kirabo who knows Arabic, who is deployed there by a company, going to do? What direction are they going to save the girl? So government has failed. Even they set up technical committees, which have never met or done anything sensible. It was, I think, last year when we saw the minister, Betty Amongi, fly to Saudi, talk, we shall have this. So these are some of the yardsticks that they would make sure that the welfare of these girls is protected.
So can we actually say that the continuous failure to be able to intervene in these issues is also partly by government's failure to make sure that they come in at the right time and follow up on the things that they have planned, like what you just talked about?
I think government is just acting funny. because this sector brings in about 900 million US dollars every year. That's a lot of money. Last year it was, I think, among the top 5 earners for our government. But they know what they're supposed to do, but they're not doing it. Yes, you know the money goes to the consolidated fund. You have an embassy where you have so many Ugandans deployed to work there,
yes,
but the embassy is underfunded. You have a ministry, the ministry's budget is very funny, and yet this is a very important sector that is tainting the image, that is bringing Ugandans back home in caskets, bring Ugandans with maybe some body parts missing, not functional. I think it's just not giving it the attention it does. But Felix mentioned a very important issue. Also, there is what we call conflict of interest. One time government, I don't know what forced them to do that, but they released a list of people who own companies. Brother and sister.
Yes.
Who own companies, and that time they were very blank. I want to tell you the big names we saw there. Make it very hard, because you know in business it's all about maximization of profits.
Yes.
So some of these measures have an implication on the profits these companies are making. And for me, once I saw some of these names, I just said, hey, Mary, come and help us.
Yes.
But I also think, Philo, the other problem we have in this country is that there's a big gap between the bourgeoisie, you know, and the takatakas. You know, there's a big gap.
Yes.
And sometimes if the matter doesn't touch the bourgeoisie, you'll suffer. Trust me, you'll suffer. You know why?
Yes.
If there's anyway, it can never be. I don't think it can never be. I don't think so. If you ever have a child of one of the bourgeoisie being mistreated somewhere, you remember the time of COVID when guys were stuck in China? When students were stuck in China.
It was a very clear eye-opener. He put it
Do you
let
know what
everybody
government
know
did?
their position.
Because the bourgeoisie had kids in China,
Yes.
my friend, everything was done. We don't know how kids came back because the world was locked, but
Yes.
somehow
They were in
those
the country.
bourgeoisie will find a way because it touches them directly. These things of Middle East, these young girls dying, they are not concerned. And being honest, because it is not directly affecting
Them.
these things you talk about, the name of Uganda, these things they are interested. Does it have to take the Nope people, the Chaguranyis, the Senyonyis, the Ruvongoyas of this world to go and bring people from Saudi Arabia back to Uganda? Really, let's be honest. Let's not fear to talk about facts as they are. Does it have to take another political party when there's a sitting formidable government with fully functioning institutions, and the best they can do is go to the this place where they normally put what? This media center, they normally put a polythene behind and they're just there talking. So what?
Explain that situation.
Explaining for what? Right now we don't need lip service. Everyone can talk. But honestly and truly, okay, you're saying, but Jawa, where are they getting them? The ones who are bringing them
And
back.
what processes are they following that government cannot follow?
The gap between, you see, that's the agony of poverty. That's the agony of poverty. If some of you have read directly in the book of Animal Farm, you will appreciate everything going on as abnormal, but normal. So, we have, and now the coin is thrown back to us as societies, as parents. Let us re-engage our people in formidable work in Uganda. People sell land to go. I don't know what, people say this oftenly, but sometimes it comes off as insulting or offensive, but let's try to make a living in our country. Like let's limit our, what is kwegomba in English? Desire? Let us limit our desires. Let us limit our desires.
You know, there's a mindset that,
you know,
out there is better.
Which is the truth, by the way. No, it is the truth.
True, but
that's a matter
Robert,
of fact.
you can't have seen stories. You can't have seen people who have gone where you want to go,
and
right?
Their lives have changed,
yes, and their lives have changed.
Yeah, and you don't.
I mean,
but
that could
I
be
think we need to manage our expectations. But honestly and truly, our leaders, in every respect, be political, be religious, be cultural without fear of contradiction. You have done us one of the worst disservices in terms of managing people's expectations, in terms of helping Ugandans understand the realities of some of these things. Cultural leaders are silent when it comes to things like this. They only want to be priding in names. Oh, you Wambogo, or they never talk about such things. When you go to religious, that's the thing, playing safe for what?
You can't afford to play safe.
You know, when you go to religious leaders, the only thing they want, Torah, chirete, chirete. They want chirete is like chirete. That is all, when it comes to getting offer to the what, those ones, they will speak until they lose their voices.
Also being invited at ceremonies.
When you bring these political leaders, anyway, we don't have any hope in these people, because for them, their intentions are entirely about themselves. I stand to be challenged if there's a political, you know, many, very few anyway, as you've seen. Sometimes government comes in because it is the mandate holder. We have seen NUP come in, and we appreciate, by the way, must take cognizance of what they are doing, regardless of how they are doing it, whether people will say
for political marriage, and
we don't care. This point, as long as it is saving a situation, and we do applaud their efforts. We hope others also jump onto the wagon.
Absolutely, everybody has to get into it or onto it. Our poll question still running over there on Twitter, and we would love to find out from you how you think we can better the labor externalization in Uganda. What should be done? How can the government of Uganda manage better labor externalization? I'll be sharing your feedback in just a couple of minutes. For now, a break. When we get back, the big stories in the dailies.
Stay connected on the largest 4G network in Uganda using the Airtel 4G Pocket MiFi at only 75,000 Uganda shillings. It comes with 15 GBs free, valid for a month. You can connect up to 10 of your friends and family at a go. Visit the nearest Airtel shop to get one today, or call 0800 333 330 for free delivery within Kampala. Dial *175 *9# to activate free 15 GBs. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Every waking day is a reminder just how beautiful this, our land, truly is. The kind of beauty that you can only find here, in the lush green all around us and the wondrous sights within. It's in the distinct aroma of our cooking, to the taste of food that takes you on a journey, in the sound of homecoming and the sound of Mother Earth, in the magnificence we find on our travels and the exciting moments we experience. Ours is the kind of beauty that comes in all things big and small. All we have to do is awaken our senses and truly enjoy what's uniquely ours. Explore Uganda, the Pearl of Africa.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
The Daily Monitor this morning, starting off with a tax fight triggers a rise in chicken and pork prices. I could say if the trend follows like this December, we may not be experiencing some chicken and pork. Now, there is a standoff with the Uganda Revenue Authority's decision to seize hundreds of inbound trucks transporting raw materials for making poultry and animal feeds over 18 billion Uganda shillings tax areas has ignited a meltdown in the businesses, leading to shortages and price hikes for dealers, farmers and consumers. Now, the Yellow House NRM faction orders President Museveni to contest in 2026. Experts now want primary school cycle reduced to 6 years. And the UVRI resumes testing for Ebola after truce with Health Ministry. Now, police step-up raids, arrest scores amid rising insecurity. And in the business section, Uganda to have more dollar millionaires by 2032, according to a report. And looking at today in history, eclipse occurs at Biharwe and Kochi. The year was 1492. And Libya's Muammar Gaddafi is killed back in 2011.
And of course, crossing over onto the New Vision, drop degree requirements for primary school teachers, experts advise. That is a story on page 3 of the New Vision, but also they give you a big headline right there. Businesses get 1 trillion shillings for cheap loans and money to be channeled through financial institutions. That is a story on page 5. And of course, in the series, the PWDs struggle to get maternal health services. And that is also right there for you. But they also give you a picture on the NRM youth as they want Museveni to run in 2026. Very excited right there. Now, also in the New Vision, shillings 17 billion police funds vanish. That is a story to follow up also on page 7 of the New Vision. And also more, did Kenyatta Nyerere Obote initiate Asian expulsion? It's a big question right there, but with more on page 26 and 27 of the New Vision.
Daily Monitor Sports expect a well-drilled Sun Cranes coming again from coach Shirinzi. And they're showing you there the AFCON search journey and Uganda's fixture. 1 short lead for Sekibeja. And this is, of course, in golf and showing you the lineup over there. Speaking of the FIFA World Cup, looking at rated favorites, Argentina captain Lionel Messi has said defending champions France and Brazil are the favorites to win the World Cup in Qatar this year.
Well, in the New Vision Sport, also talking more about day 1 of Sekibeja, who is in the lead when it comes to golf. More of that in the story right there. They give you his score and, of course, how far the game, the tournament is going. And also in the New Vision inside, Waswa Bosa frustrates FC. That is also right there for you. Obel commends Ndeje for taking a lead in sport, talking about the varsity games. That is Ndeje 2022. That and more stories in the New Vision Sports section.
The Daily Nation this morning. State of emergency that changed Kenya, and the 59th Mashuja Day, Ruto to preside over his first national function today, 1952, 70 years ago today, on October 20th, 1952, Kenya was thrown into a dark phase as a state of emergency was declared. Well, you need to get the paper to read more on that. More common to reveal secret SGR contracts. Now, in the crime division, IEBC officers phones leads police to suspected killers. And Safaricom sued over SIM swap fraud. Of course, the telecommunications giant is facing a landmark class action suit that could expose it to runaway claims from victims seeking damages for injuries and financial losses caused by fraudulent SIM swap activities on the telecoms, M-Pesa and mobile money platforms. That and many more stories in the Daily Nation. Now, getting back to our poll question, we did ask, how can the Ugandan government manage better labor externalization? How can the government of Uganda manage better labor externalization? Well, coming in from Derek, you are saying that good morning, family. For starters, the government needs to cover the loopholes in ministries like internal affairs, gender, labor, immigration, etc. Those ministries are a bit dormant and very corrupt. You find a lot of people stranded around their offices. bonuses. Those with bribes are the ones who are worked on faster. Secondly, they have failed to monitor the companies they register. They're all money-minded, and that is why it's easier for fake companies with bad intentions to get a license from such ministries. Even when they cancel their licenses, they rebrand using the same ministries. Imagine. So let's let government put a keen eye on those ministries. Thank you so much, Derek. We do have another one that is coming in from another viewer saying, good morning, UBC. By having peace talks and setting terms and conditions in relation to the countries our dear Ugandans go to. Thank you so much. Well, the poll is still running. Get onto our socials on Twitter, hashtag UBCGMU, and let us know what could be the ideal thing or the ideal way, the proper way to better labor externalization by our government. Well, the traffic updates this morning, I am looking at different areas around Namirembe, looking at Kagugube, looking at Makere Hill Road, Nakasero, all the way into town. This morning, it's quite a very busy area. Starting off from Chitakule Road over here, there is quite a lot of traffic that has already built over there. And as you're getting into Nakulabye, I could say that Balintuma Road is also picking on the traffic over here. Hoima Road is very, very chaotic this morning, quite dominated into the reds, and in some other areas, the traffic is already starting to build off. Looking at Chadondo Road over here in Namirembe, well, the traffic is already starting to build on the same road as well, and as you go further, you need to be expecting it to get heavier by the minute. And looking at other areas like Sa Apollo Kagwa, the traffic on this road already is spotted on several parts. We do have the reds here, we do have traffic building up over here, as of course you're getting into Nakulabi and trying to join Makere Hill Road. You need to expect the traffic over there because it is quite intense as you go further. And as you are still continuing all the way to Wandegea, I could say that Wandegea, as usual, has the traffic this morning over here at the junction, where we do have cars crossing over, trying to head to different parts. We are witnessing some traffic over there. Now, looking at this very part also at Gaddafi Road, we are witnessing again traffic buildups over here. We do have traffic buildups over here as well. So it may not be a very smooth ride for you who could be using this road this morning. Now, taking you to Bombo Road as you're headed towards town, we already have a witness. We already see traffic starting to build up again on some parts of this road. Over here, the oranges are clearly showing. If you're headed towards a town, or if you are headed towards Wandegea, so using this road, I could say that you're not any different. Could be the same story you may be telling as you're trying to join Kampala Road. Buganda Road, on the other hand, is a bit, it's actually very free. The green is quite dominant, so it is an ideal route I would be recommending. Lumumba Avenue hasn't yet also become busier, so you could choose to use it as you're headed towards a town. Nakasero Road, as well as you're approaching, of course, the town center, you'll be witnessing a bit of traffic over here, as you can see over here and over here, as you're also accessing Speak Road. So this morning, I could say for the most part from those areas are quite very, very busy. Now, we are yet to see where this as the hours fly by, but for now it is a rushing time, or I could say these are rush hours, so you expect the traffic in these given areas. Well, that's it from the traffic updates this morning. I now leave Mollen to tell us what we should be expecting when it comes to weather, and of course giving us more climate news this morning. I am Philomena Mastiko. Have a very beautiful Thursday morning.
Well, thank you very much, Philomena. Now, we also want to take a look at the innovations that are being done to cope up with the changing weather and climate conditions. And it seems like pretty much most regions are now looking at innovations in terms of how do you notice that there are changes in your body when it comes to rising temperatures. This is the latest that is coming in. And of course, Australia has taken this on, and some of the manufacturing companies from China. Now, they have come up with some some kind of device which is a wearable, and this is meant to detect body temperatures. Should you be in the middle of a heat wave, or you're in areas where your temperatures are actually getting into affecting your body. Now, this particular device detects the body organs temperatures getting out of the normal. Now, it's not only detecting the 37 degrees Celsius mark for a normal body temperature, but it also goes ahead to warn you if this could be dangerous to your health. And the good part is that it actually makes an alarm that if you need to go to the hospital, due to a heat shock. And this is being developed also on basis of the fact that there are also, especially companies that work in areas that have high temperatures, like industries. Now, the only downside to it is that they also have the database to collect this information with your bosses. So should you be in an area and your temperatures are beyond normal and you're not getting out of that place because of the nature of a threat that is posed to your health, your bosses in the offices could actually notice, and they're able to also help out. I think it's a win-win situation. Now, this is attributed to the fact that now the climate is changing, and they're looking at ways how, individually you can notice something wrong and rush into the hospital, or even it will be good for analysis, especially at workplaces. If you realize that this is not a good place to work in, if the temperatures are being a threat to your body, and you could easily come up with data to support your claim. And this is the latest coming in, and they're saying that this was developed with clients they did consent to having this as trials, and now it's out on the market. And it's also intended to use climate-related data in terms of rising temperatures to ascertain how much this can actually help with coping into the changing variations, and then it can actually expand onto the market. This is a very good innovation right now as we talk about more extreme weather events that are related to heat waves especially, and rising temperatures. Now, away from that, we also want to follow up on a story on the emerging floods in Chad. Now, it looks like Chad has now issued a state of emergency in terms of the flooding across the area. Now, this has been taking a lot of authorities actually coming up with issuing warnings, especially when it comes to the areas that have been worst affected. Now, this flooding actually did happen a few days ago, and most of the streets are still underwater. They're looking at more of this happening because the rainy season is continuing across Chad. And of course, what they're worried about is that more people could be affected by this. So far, 1 million people have been affected. That means with evacuations from their homes and destruction of property, and some of the homes are still submerged in water. That is after that massive flood in Kenyena across Chad. Now, this flood started on 14th of October, and of course still going on, and as of yesterday there has been a state of emergency declaration that is by President Mohamed Idris Deby, who is saying that there is need to actually get the situation under control. Now, floods are not uncommon in Chad. However, what is out of the ordinary right now is that it is very intense. Now, this year's rains came early and were the heaviest in this decade, stating that now a state of emergency will be instituted to better contain and manage the natural disasters, as President Deby was saying in a televised address to the nation just last evening. And also more is that locals are also concerned, because so far over 600 homes have been evacuated and they cannot go back because the waters are still stagnant over there. And of course, the worst affected places in Chad are within the southern provinces of Mayo. There are also provinces of Mollen, Chari, and Mondol that have been worst affected. And the capital, Kenyena, has also been affected, with hundreds of people fleeing their homes due to the flooding in the last few days. And government has put in place a response plan to provide shelter, food, and sanitation, according to what the president was also talking about in his nation address. address. Now, Chad's National Meteorological Agency has also come out to issue more warnings and alerts due to the fact that they do expect these rains to continue and it could be worse. They're also looking at more of the extended forecasts for the neighboring countries like Nigeria, which has also recently been experiencing floods affecting over 600 people. And of course, they have also extended the forecast across Cameroon, which is likely to be dealing with most of this flooding. And also climate scientists are saying that this is a huge eye-opener to African nations to look into their strategic plans when it comes to climate action, because now we are dealing with a lot of these instances, especially with extreme flooding, with extreme landslides. That seems to be just getting more and more intense. You look at Nigeria just last week, they're also dealing with something like this. Now Chad, and the forecast is extending to Cameroon, it's extending to Niger, meaning that we could be looking at a huge disaster across Africa. Now, talking about disasters, we've also had a drought crisis across the greater Horn of Africa, and most of the countries that have been worst affected are, you look at Somalia, you look at Ethiopia, but Kenya now is also looking at the worst of the time. Now, they have reported more death when it comes to their cattle as they face the worst drought crisis for this year. Now, drought has forced Kenya's Maasai to sell the starving cattle from, for just a small price, because they're trying to cope up with what is happening. Now, as of yesterday, the reports coming in from the Maasai region is that they now are looking at selling off whatever they have, because they cannot provide for this cattle anymore. And this is due to the prolonged drought across the area. Now, livestock are central to the traditional Maasai way of life, not only as the main source of food and income, but also as the marker of their social status. And of course, the constant presence with the cows and living alongside people. With them, it is something that they stand to lose as they look at the extreme of this drought crisis. And of course, now we're talking about the fourth failed rainy season across East Africa as a region. And this comes with it, of course, the drought crisis that has been extending over the area. And not only for failed, crop production, but also you look at the cattle production now. And it's not just across Kenya. We've also had similar instances in Karamoja. We've had the worst, drought crisis prolonging over Karamoja. Even as we speak, cases of food insecurity and malnutrition over the area of Karamoja. And these actually border the Maasai area, where they do also share the same social status with the cattle. It's posing a huge challenge across East Africa, if you ask me. And this is going to be also among the things that as East Africa as a region, they will have to be presenting at the upcoming COP21, especially in terms of adaptation. How do we cope with this kind of environment? And how are we accounting for loss and damage coming from some of these climate extremes? Now, it's not only Kenya that is dealing with drought. Even us here in Uganda, we have had the worst of the worst. And just yesterday, the Uganda Coffee Development Authority did come up to give a report on how far we are standing, especially in terms of our coffee export. Now, they're also looking at drought being a cause of a reduction in production. Now, Uganda Coffee Development Authority yesterday did come out to give a report saying that coffee export is down to 14% year to year due to drought. Now, according to them, the coffee exports declined last month, that is in September, due to the impact of drought affecting many growing areas across the country. And the state-run sector regulator is saying that this is something they are worried about. Now, Uganda has shipped a total of 503,695 60-kilogram bags of coffee beans in September, which is down 14% compared to the same period a year earlier. That is according to the authority. Now, the decrease in exports was mainly attributed to low yields this year that was characterized by the prolonged drought within most of the regions that actually have these coffee plants, adding that dry conditions have resulted into a shorter harvest season in central and eastern Uganda. And this poses a huge threat to Uganda, because we do pride ourselves in our coffee exports, and seeing this is actually something that we should be worried about. We look at this coffee, and of course now it's being threatened by, you know, these climate extremes. And 14% drop is actually a huge drop, and which is why actually Uganda Coffee Development Authority is sounding an alarm, saying that they need quick interventions to make sure that we actually have ways of coping into these changing variations in climate, especially to maintain our coffee export status. Away from that, we also want to look at what is happening across the country. We'll be tapping in from our satellites, looking at UMITSAT this morning, what is happening across the country. We've had mostly cloudy conditions starting off for the southern part of the country as well as the western sector. But for now, we're looking at rains across central northern Uganda. We're looking at areas of Gulu where we have rains even as we speak. That system is expected to continue westwards. That will be also extending up to northwestern Uganda across most areas within Arua, Yumbe. We're looking at a little bit of rains even as we speak, where we're seeing the green colors right there over the map. That is where we do have rain starting to develop. And of course, that will also be crossing over to the eastern part of Lake Victoria, areas of Tororo, Jinja. We could be looking at rainy conditions for you this morning. Now, that system across central northern Uganda is the one we do expect to also bring in more rains across the Kyoga across the Kyoga regions, and that could also take in part of midwestern Uganda across Masindi. But we'll go ahead and take a look at the forecast that is coming in from the Uganda National Meteorological Authority. Starting off with southwestern Uganda, we do expect a mix of clouds and sunshine for this morning, but quite a pleasant morning for you right there, starting off at 26 degrees. Now we look at the southwestern part of the country, Masaka, Kalisizo, Zimbabwe. We're also forecasting rains that will be across several places with temperatures at 26. Mount Elgon Highlands, we're forecasting a mix of clouds and sunshine. Quite a warm morning for you right there, starting off at 27 degrees. Now we look at the eastern side of Lake Victoria, where we're likely to start off with those rains. We already have some of the rains over the area. And of course, that is also starting off with a warm 26 degrees centigrade. That system will continue into the afternoon. Eastern Uganda, we're forecasting sunny intervals. Quite a hot morning for you, starting off with a 28 degrees. Now across the eastern part of central Ruwero, Wobbly, Zibururi, Nakaseke, we are forecasting a mix of clouds and sunshine as well. Quite a warm morning at 27 degrees centigrade. Central northern Uganda, Gulu, Kitgum, Adjumani, most likely to have intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions. Quite a warm morning as well at 28 degrees Celsius. We look at the central part of Lake Victoria Basin. We do have rains in the forecast for areas of Mukono, Kampala, Entebbe and Wakiso. And of course, we also do expect that to start off with a chilly 25. Some of that system will be developing later in the afternoon, also bringing rains, most especially across the southern sector, parts of the western sector, as well as parts within central northern Uganda, where we do expect to continue with those rains later in the afternoon. Well, that is it in terms of weather. We do have Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up, and of course, big night for the sports fans. And of course, Ruben will be here to take us through much more of those sports details. Later than that, we'll also be going into Good Morning Uganda Extra. My name is Mollen, Kenyena. I want to wish you a lovely day.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Simply make a small deposit of 99k and pay the balance mpola. You can pay in daily, weekly or even monthly installments while you enjoy your new phone. So what are you doing today? Visit any MTN shop near you and get the MTN cupboard. That's super easy.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way, because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
A World Cup in the desert? The first one in the Middle East. The first to be held at the end of the year? That's crazy. Get ready for spectacular moves, high-flying saves, unbelievable goals. Out of this world celebration.
Would you believe it? What a moment here!
All 64 matches live. That's over 5,000 action-packed minutes of the FIFA 2022 World Cup Qatar. Now that's crazy. Catch all the action only on SuperSport, your world of champions. On Go TV. Love it.
Welcome to English in a Minute. This expression seems like it could have some depth to it. Let's hear what Anna and Jonathan have to say about this expression.
So, you remember how Chuck really wanted to be part of our bowling team?
Oh yeah, he started to lay it on thick about how great he was to our team captain, Marco. But I'm sure Marco didn't believe him.
Well, it worked. Chuck will be joining the team at our next practice.
To lay it on thick means to overstate something. You try to say that something is much better or much worse than it really is because you want to impress someone. You can lay it on thick using blame or giving praises, like Chuck did with his bowling skills. And that's English in a Minute.
The Ministry of Health informs the public that there are confirmed cases of Ebola in Uganda. We, however, urge the public not to panic as the situation is being managed. The Ministry of Health further reminds the public to be on the lookout for any persons who may show signs and symptoms of Ebola. These include high body temperature, abdominal pains, diarrhea, vomiting, bleeding from the body openings such as the nose, eyes, and mouth. Please inform the nearest health worker immediately if you see anyone with these signs and symptoms. To prevent Ebola from spreading further, please take the following preventive measures: regular washing of hands with water and soap, avoid handshaking and hugging, avoiding any contact with any suspected Ebola patients. Any person who dies suddenly should not be buried but reported to the nearest health worker or LC1 immediately. For further information, please call the Ministry of Health toll-free number on 0800 100-066 or send a free SMS to your report on 8500. This message is from the Ministry of Health with support from UNICEF and World Health Organization.
Every waking day is a reminder just how beautiful this, our land, truly is. The kind of beauty that you can only find here. In the lush green all around us and the wondrous sights within. It's what you feel in the gentle caress of tropical wind from the mountaintops. And the glow in your heart from a warm neighborly invite. It's in the distinct aroma of our cooking, to the taste of food that takes you on a journey. In the sound of homecoming and the sound of Mother Earth. In the magnificence we find on our travels and the exciting moments we experience. Ours is the kind of beauty that comes in all things big and small. All we have to do is awaken our senses and truly enjoy what's uniquely ours. Explore Uganda, the pearl of Africa.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning and thank you for being with us on UBC TV. It is exactly 6 minutes past the top of the hour. Once again, I'm Robert Kirabo Nyonyintono with a very interesting topic this morning where many Ugandans are very eager to know actually how they will be benefiting from such an opportunity. Now this morning we are going to be discussing that is the efficiency and effectiveness of the parish development model funds. We all remember that this is one of the things government believes that it's going to transform the welfare of Ugandans, where it's going to bring the 39% of Ugandans who are in the non-money economy or subsistence households into the money economy. How it's going to do that, that is something I'm going to be discussing. But just remind you that I have a guest who will be joining me anytime from now, and that is Dr. Constantine Batwaraki, who happens to be a specialist on the parish development model, but also a development consultant, and we'll be discussing more. Now, just to remind you, the parish development model was launched this very year on the 26th of February, that is in Kibuku district at Kibuku Primary School by His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Now, if you remember or you followed, when he was launching it, he said, this is the magic bullet. And they believe that it's going to transform Ugandans if they embrace it very well. This very month, on the 11th, we saw the Prime Minister of the Republic of Uganda, Robin Anabanja, launching the disbursement of funds to 3,237 SACCOs. Now, this was to a tune of 80.92 billion shillings. This money was wired directly to the accounts of these SACCOs. And this is money under Pillar 3 of the parish development model. Now, we talk about parish development model. We know that this is a 7-pillar model that is aimed at ensuring that Ugandans benefit. There are those that are going to benefit directly in terms of the financial inclusion. There are those that are going to benefit indirectly, because when a road is worked upon, definitely everyone will use the road. But there is that particular sector that they are looking at, the Ugandans that are living hand to mouth, the Ugandans, they don't have salary, they're not sure of when they're going to get any bit of money. So how do we transform those? That's why we say that it is for everybody, but there are particular pillars that are only inclusive to a very few people. When we talk about the parish development model, and we say this is something that has 7 pillars, all aimed at transforming you, the Ugandan. Pillar 1 is production, storage, processing, and marketing. That government under the parish development model is looking at these poor people who are really not having any tangible or reliable source of income. How do we bring them into productivity in the money economy? His Excellency usually talks about chenda chonka, that these people, what they plant, they don't sell. It is all about them eating. And they continue in the chain of poverty. because they plant poor yield, they get poor yields. At the end of the day, all they do is they eat what they're planting. Or if they are to sell, very minimal, not meaningful. So how do we ensure that these people, they improve their production, they improve their storage, they improve their processing and marketing? That is under Pillar 1 of the Parish Development Model. Now, when you go to Pillar 2, it is about infrastructure and economic services. Yes, when they have improved all these, how then are they going to get what they have produced to the markets? That is where government now says all planning, all government activities are going to be done at the parish development, at the parish level. That government brings together forces, coordinates all its agencies, that at the parish development model, that is where this begins in all the 10,594 parishes that we have in Uganda, because that is the number of parishes we have, 10,594 parishes. So how do we ensure that this is how things are being done? Pillar number 3, which you've just talked about, that is financial inclusion, where money is wired